Now, the Northern Lights dazzled millions across the globe on Friday, with people being able to see the extraordinary colours across Europe, the US, as well as New Zealand. Now, in Germany, people were treated to a display of pinkish green hues to bluish green hues in a matter of hours. Here in the US, you can see this beautiful pink and green display in Nashville, Tennessee. And lights were exposed after one of the strongest geomagnetic storms in decades hit the Earth. The last time there was such a strong storm was in 2003. But if you missed last night's display, do not worry, because the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration predicts that the lights will continue through the weekend. Well, we're live now to Boulder, Colorado, to speak to Sean Dahl, a space weather forecaster at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. A warm welcome to you, Sean. Some really extraordinary scenes. So we've got northern lights, dazzling, southern lights in some cases as well. How rare is something like this?
Hi, Helena. Thanks for having us on your show. It's great to be able to be here and communicate this message to your viewing audience. Yeah, it's very rare. As mentioned, this is the last time we've had this level of activity. It was 2003. And when we were expecting this type of activity and put out our watch, the G4 watch, near the top end of our scale, that was the first time we've done that since 2005. So it was a measure of the confidence that we had of an arriving, what we call coronal mass ejection, material from the sun and a strong magnetic field along with it, coming towards Earth. And that's what arrived with some force earlier yesterday. And it worked its way on through the night, where everybody almost globally got to see the aurora at much further equatorial latitudes than usual.
It has been absolutely extraordinary. Some gorgeous scenes, as you say, but I just wonder, with this, there is the potential for communications, for example, to be disrupted, satellites and so on. That's something that the Biden administration has even said that it's actually monitoring. Have we seen anything disrupted through this solar storm?
Yes, Helena, we sure have. Some reports have been coming in for exactly that, communications issues, whether it's signal loss or disruptions, degraded communications on certain frequencies. We'd expect this with high-frequency communications. We're getting it with some others. And that's no surprise either, because our protective atmosphere out there, the ionosphere section, is very messed up right now from all this storming levels. And it's making for signals to be wobbly, if you will, as they try to go through the atmosphere. And that's creating problems. We've also heard reports from the power grid trying to work to make sure the electricity still flows on the grid here in North America. And they've been doing so because we warn them and we talk to them directly to make sure they're able to do that. And the last thing I'll mention is GPS signals. We've got reports from farmers in the plain states here operating their tractors with precision GPS. And they were off so badly yesterday on timing, signal loss, and accuracy by over 12 feet. They just couldn't use those systems yesterday. But fortunately, they're able to do so today because we're in a bit of a lull between these storms.
You were mentioning there those wobbly signals and the effect that they can have. I mean, how long could we potentially see an impact because of this?
Well, like you said, we're expecting this to go through the weekend, just at varying levels of intensity. Yesterday, we kept all the way through the night. We kept hitting those G4 and G5 levels very routinely. So things were connected very favorably to the sun. And to do that, that magnetic field coming from the sun has to be opposite Earth, just like putting two magnets together. And that was the case for almost 24 hours. Right now, it's turned a little bit. They're repelling a little bit. So things are in the lull. It's not as active, but we're still reaching G3 conditions even now. And then tomorrow, we're expecting the arrival of another very fast-moving, double the speed of any of these CMEs we've already experienced, to slam into Earth's protective barriers here and spin activity well up once again.
I mean, Sean, I imagine that once this is over, you and your team might be breathing a sigh of relief. But of course, you are there in Colorado. I do have to ask if you managed to get outside and catch a glimpse yourself.
I sure did. I was working from home last night doing a lot of these interviews. As a matter of fact, well into the night, and I stepped outside in a break, and I could see the northern lights for myself. They were just very faint, but when I used my camera, I captured that beautiful red glow. Some of my colleagues here, when they had a little break, they took turns and went up to the roof here in Boulder, and they got magnificent pictures of the aurora off to the north.
And finally, any tips about the best way to go outside and enjoy them, to catch a sight of them?
Yeah, Helen, absolutely. I'd say the best time would be like 10 o'clock in the evening to 2 o'clock in the morning local times. That's usually a prime time to be able to see them if they've spun up and are reacting out there. The other thing is to get under a dark sky. We still have a very young moon. It's up there now, but it shouldn't be enough to contaminate anybody's view with too much light. And then lastly, if you're not seeing it or you're not sure you're seeing it, use your cell phone or your digital camera, because the technology is good enough that it'll pick up those signals that our eyes are not detecting.
Some great tips there from Sean Dahl, a space weather forecaster at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Space Weather Prediction Center there in Colorado. Great to have you with us, Sean. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, before we go, large parts of the world got a rare glimpse of the northern lights on Friday night. The Orkney Islands in Scotland seen here. Now, the lights were exposed after one of the strongest solar storms in decades hit the Earth. But if you missed the display, well, don't worry. Forecasters predict more lights throughout the weekend. In fact, if you're on the East Coast here in the US, now would be a perfect time to head outside.